The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. Originally published, I think, 1920, 22, 23, something like that. And they have these nice, like leather bound editions. Like I have a stack of them, but they have these nice, like little leather bound editions of all these old books like this, and I think they're pretty nice. I like them a lot. They feel good. They're well constructed. But anyways, the sun also rises. So essentially, there's this group of expats living in Paris, and I thought it was kind of funny because so during World War One, Hemingway was a journalist in World War One, and at one point in the book, he writes something like, "Nobody who ever left their home country ever wrote anything worth reading. That's why it all ends up in the newspapers." And I thought that was pretty funny because this is his first novel, and he was an expat. But so essentially, they're all living in Paris. You have Jake, he's the narrator of the book, and the book is written like almost like journalism. There's not a lot of metaphor or like literary devices like that. It's just a story told straight up. Frankly, this is what happened. This is what it was like. This is what happened next. And so at at one point, it seems like the characters are kind of shallow, not really well developed. But it's just very frank, direct writing, and it kind of takes a while to pick up. My opinion, there's like 19 chapters, and it didn't really pick up until like the ninth or 10th chapter. But like those 9 or 10 chapters probably could have been done in two. But I'm not really here to judge what's great writing or not. I'm just a reader. So you have Jake, he's the narrator, and you have this girl, Brett. They're to me they're the two main characters. I'm pretty sure they're the two main characters. And Brett's the narrator, and this is post World War One, like 1920s, starting out in Paris, and none of them are Parisian, none of them are even French, but they're living there, and they're like all writers. They're all involved with literature somehow. And so Jake is writing on his second novel, and he's like trying to get started with that. There's this girl, Brett, who he's had a relationship with, but in the war, he has had an injury that makes it where he can't have sex. So now him and Brett have this platonic relationship. And Brett, she lost her first husband in the war. He died. Her second husband was abusive, like made her sleep on the floor and stuff, like just weird stuff. And so she left him, and now she is kind of, how do you say, promiscuous. She gets around. And they have another friend. None of these people are like really friends. They're all like associates and just literati type people. And they just live this kind of aimless, hedonistic lifestyle of eating and drinking and sleeping around and trying to write books. So, that being said, Brett, the girl, she also has a relationship with this dude, Cohen. They go down to like south in France, and they spend like 2 weeks like hooking up. They come back. Brett doesn't really want anything to do with Cohen because she's supposed to be getting married to Mike. She's engaged to Mike, but and all of these people like know each other. So it's like really messy and weird. But they don't seem like too upset about it, any of them. Cohen, he kind of is like in a way obsessed with Brett. Like he has this like burning love for her, but for her it was like just a fling. She doesn't really like him, and he's always like hanging around. So he's like hanging around this group of people, and he's like really unwanted. So, anyways, Mike, Brett, Jake, this other dude, Bill, and Cohen, they all go down to Spain for the festival of the running of the bulls. So they're all down there together. Mike, Brett's fiance, is getting drunk all the time. He's like keeps getting hammered, and he's like talking trash to Cohen. He's like, nobody wants you around. Like, why are you here? Like, Brett doesn't like you. Like, you're creeping her out. You're bothering everybody. You contribute nothing here. Nobody wants you. And so everybody's like Mike, chill, Mike, chill. But Mike has no chill. And it's kind of just like bringing everybody down. Cohen just hanging around, and then Mike always riding his ass. It's just like bringing the whole party down. And Jake, the narrator, he is really interesting in the bullfighting. He actually makes good friends with the manager of this young new matador. I keep forgetting his name. The young matador, he's like 19, and he's kind of new on the scene, but he's a really talented bullfighter. And but Brett like falls in love with this dude. Pedro, I was right, Pedro Romero. So Pedro is this young bullfighter, and Brett like hooks up with him. So it's just really kind of messy, and there's no real big moral to the story, I think, other than this post World War I, and everybody's just like kind of lost their values, lost their morals. Like, romance and love doesn't really mean anything to them. They don't really have any real struggle in their life. Like, Mike is bankrupt, and he just keeps spending money. You know, at one point they're like, why don't you get down in the street and run with the bulls? And Mike laughs. He's like, well, that wouldn't be fair to my creditors. You know, it's just kind of like a big joke to them. They just live this hedonistic lifestyle. And I think it would have been good for me to have read this book earlier in my life, because I think, in a way, it's autobiographical of Hemingway's life. But in a way, I think as a man, I've been every character in the book. You know, the platonic Jake, the jealous Mike, the love-struck Cohen, and, you know, the fiery Pedro. But, yeah, I think it was worth a read. I could say more, but, you know, at the end of the book, I guess it's really popular, famous line that Brett says to Jake. Like, he has to go pretty much pick her up from Spain, because she's pretty much run through Pedro. Pedro's 19, she's like 34, and she's just like, well, it really wouldn't be any good for him to be with me. You know, she thinks that she's too old to have children, and she wouldn't want to ruin the children. I guess, I don't know if she meant by her age or just her attitude. She doesn't want to ruin children. But she kind of sends Pedro away, even though Pedro really does want to be with her. And Jake has to come down there and like get her. So, all in all, I think it was a good book. Like I said, I'm not here to judge on what's great literature or not. I'm just reading and reviewing. Plus, I think that's highly subjective. You know, one thing I like about these older books is that they're pretty honest about society. You know, they're not romanticizing things, or you don't feel like it's not a Netflix series where they're compelled to have certain characters or include certain things. It's pretty honest, you know. It's honest to the author's views and opinions and just the state of society, which I think is interesting, and I think that's very valuable. You know, I don't like something that feels like forced, like it's obligatory diversity and inclusion. I just feel like it's weird and it's dishonest. You know, like, just, that's why I kind of like the style. Like, this is what happened. This is what it was like from the author's perspective. It's not manipulated. You know, even it's fiction. Obviously, it's fiction. So, but like I said, it's semi-autobiographical, and I think it was worth a read. The sun also rises.